Hello everybody, welcome to the training today. My name is Matt. I'm the training manager here at Beacon Software. Today we're going to look at the settings side of the software. Let me know, I've been playing around with audio levels, let me know if audio levels are off a little bit. We do have a chat box should be to the right. You should be able to type in any questions you guys may have. But basically I'm going to go through the entire back-end settings part of this. This is where previously you were able to get to it from Dispatch Anywhere. We have kind of branched off and put it on its own web page. So usually a company admin would kind of cover all of this stuff, and then any of the dispatching, accounting, etc. Is going to be in the dispatching software. So again, thank you for showing up this early. For future reference, it will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. We also have a couple other videos on there, so if you need help with anything, most of the stuff should be on there, but if not, we can always set up one-on-one trainings as well. Just let me know in the chat. I'll also type my email address in there, so if you guys have any questions later on, you can always email me or always call our support line. So we'll get started today here. So the new settings page, to access it, you got two options. You can either go directly to the web page, and the web page is just settings.dispatchanywhere.net. It will bring you to a login screen. You either need your PIN number or a username that you've already created. I will show you how to create a username today if you'd rather use that. I'm still using my PIN, I just haven't changed it yet. But either your PIN or username, whatever password that you've normally been using, you'll sign in. I'm going to use our Greenlight account. And this is the page that you're going to be looking at. All right, so once you're here, the overview, everybody would have access to this, including dispatchers if they want to access this web page. This is where they can change their password if they need to. Otherwise, a company admin would have to change that as well. The other way that you can access this, I'll bring this up here, is directly through the software. So I'll log in here. If you're already in the dispatching software, up where your username is, you can click Settings. And it does the same thing. It's going to open up the same website, and you'll log in just the same way. So nothing different about that. So we'll kind of go through some of these options here on the left-hand side. And again, if you guys have questions during the... I guess we don't want to restart my computer. If you have any questions throughout the training, just go ahead and put them in the chat box, and I'll answer them as it comes here. So we'll start here with the company information. Existing customers, a lot of this stuff is going to be filled out already for you. You may need to update a couple things, but new customers, you may have to come in and actually enter all this information. So company information is going to be the main company information, so addresses, contact name, telephone numbers, and email address. This email address will be used on when you're sending out invoices or statements or reports from the software. This will be the default email address that it uses when it sends it out. So you want to make sure that's an email address, either from like a main company one or just somebody that's going to be handling billing typically. Down here at the bottom, you have this notification, the shop manager's email. What this is going to be used for, the drivers have the ability to do a vehicle inspection right from their device. If anything fails on that inspection, whatever email address or email addresses you have in this box down here, they will get an email notification that so-and-so's, truck 3's headlights are bad or whatever it is. There's also reports in the system to see that stuff, but if you want an email notification that something did fail on one of your vehicles, you'd want to put your email address or email addresses down here. State license, you're going to see this in a lot of different places. This is for our Texas customers, for the Texas TDLR information. So if you are a Texas customer, you will need to fill this information out so it does show up on your invoices correctly. All right, so that's our general tab. Master job edit screen. This is used for globally changing your accounts for required fields. So what we're looking at is a basic call entry screen here. So you can hover over any one of these fields. You have a couple different options. You have a required to save. Required to save is going to be yellow, and that's going to be a dispatcher field. Anything that we mark as required to save, our dispatcher has to fill that out before they dispatch that call. We also have required to post or accounting fields. Basically information that you need on that call before it's going to be billed out. So when this call is on our posting or our verification page, if that field is blank for whatever reason, it's going to flag it on that page saying, hey, take a look at this call, you're missing some information that you said was required for billing. We have required to finish. Required to finish fields are going to be driver fields. These would be orange. So we make something like this. These are fields that the driver is going to be prompted for in the field when they finish the call. So things maybe like VIN number, odometer reading, possible POs, things like that that the driver may have to get in the field. They can type it in right on their device and it would feed back to the call. And then this hiding field, this is just going to hide the field altogether. So maybe if you're a customer that it doesn't do anything with motor clubs, maybe you want to hide these member and mileage limit fields on your calls, and it just hides it so you don't see it. So again, if you make any changes on the master, this is going to be a change on all your accounts at once. I'm going to show you here in a little bit how to make individual account changes as well. We have our job export reports here. Before, this was in at least our old DA customers, this was a report. We have moved this to the settings side of it. So if you need to run any of those export reports, and it's basically just an Excel spreadsheet of every piece of information that's on that call, you could run the date range. Just make sure you set your time zone correctly, and then whether you want a CSV or an Excel file. So it sums up the company. So we'll go on to division. I'm not going to save anything as we go here. All right. So divisions or locations or multiple companies that you may have are all going to be listed here. So in our test division, you can see we kind of have a couple of them. We mainly work out of this green light towing division, but if you have additional divisions, we can add them for you. Just let us know. We have to set the time zones on them. So currently we have to add them. You will not see this add button at the top, but just give us a call or shoot me a message and I can take care of that for you. But most companies may have the same company and division, so it may be the same information you're filling out here, but same idea. Go ahead and fill out all your information here. Again, if you're a Texas customer, you need to fill out the state license. Down here at the bottom, though, there is a spot that you can upload your logo. So if it is on your computer or a different computer you're accessing, go ahead and browse for it and upload it, and then this logo will appear on your statements and or invoices. All right, and that's the general tab. The dispatch tab, a couple settings here you can possibly change. Current ETA. This is an ETA it will place on your call unless you specifically put one on the account. And again, I'll show you that here in a little bit. But it's basically a default ETA for your calls. Area code, that's more for us, it's so we set your time zones correctly. Clear time check. This was a setting for basic phones. So if any of your drivers are still using a basic phone, you can set it for a certain time, let's say 15 minutes or 20 minutes, for example. And after that time, if a dispatcher sends the next call to the driver and it's past that time or threshold that you set, the first call will automatically finish out in the system. Again, this is really only a setting for basic phones. If your drivers are using our smartphone apps, you can pretty much ignore this. It's not used anymore. Schedule the way it's going to be for appointment calls. So if we do any appointments, we can place them in the system. Let's say we scheduled out a call for 11 o'clock. 15 minutes before that, so at 10:45, it will automatically move from a holding screen to our waiting screen. So then we can, get a driver on it. A lot of times people have this set for, let's say, 60 minutes or 120 minutes, so they have a little bit more of a warning. But again, this is our test database, so we kind of have some random stuff in here. Page warning. This is a setting for dispatch. So we'll dispatch that call out to a driver. If they don't confirm it after 5 minutes, it's going to flash at the dispatcher saying unconfirmed. So if you want a little bit more of a warning sooner, we can change it to, let's say, 2 or 3 minutes. And then driver resend, this is basically how quick or how often your driver gets alerts for a call. So again, we dispatch it out to the driver. They get the first initial alert sound, and then in this case, every 5 minutes after that, they'll get another one and another one, basically until they can confirm that call. Again, this is a setting depending on the company. Some people like to lower this maybe 1 or 2 or 3 minutes, so the drivers are confirming those calls a little bit faster, but that's what those settings do. The geocode settings to the right here, a lot of these are turned on by default, but the first enable geocode on job save. This, when you put an address in, and a box will pop up to verify the address just to make sure it's correct. If you want it to verify your addresses, that's what the first checkbox does. Auto select high confidence geocode results. What this is used for, if there's multiple search results that come up, maybe you got an address and 2 or 3 different addresses come up for some reason, you have to select it. If there's only one option and this is selected or checked, it will automatically select that every single time, so that box doesn't constantly come up. You may have to test it in your area. Most of the time it works correctly or works good for your area, but depending on the area and possibly mapping in your area, you may want to select it yourself, so you may want to uncheck that. Typically that's unchecked by default for most customers. And then autocorrect job address on geocode. So again, it's going to geocode your address. If this is selected, it will automatically update your call information for you. If this is not selected, it will geocode the address, but it will not change your call information. Again, typically if it's you have geocode turned on, this is selected. But again, if you don't want the addresses changing automatically in your call, you can uncheck that. All right. So that's the dispatch tab. Accounting, a couple different options in here. Invoice number, so you can either use the invoice as the job number, which is automatically created for you, or you can use the ticket number. The ticket number you would have to put in yourself, or the driver would have to put it in each time when they take a call, but some people like to use that invoice number instead. If you are an existing customer and you want to switch this, make sure you contact us first. We don't want to just switch it randomly in the middle. We may need to push your job numbers out. Otherwise, you may have duplicate invoices or duplicate job numbers, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. So if you're thinking about switching this, just let us know. We can help you out with that. We got an invoice message, an invoice legal statement, and a tow ticket message. So our regular invoice message is just going to appear on our invoices that we have in our system. It will appear kind of towards the middle or towards the bottom there. This is a generic message you want to appear on every single invoice, at least for that division. You can put that here. A legal statement and a tow ticket message. So the driver has the ability to, one, send out a receipt or a tow ticket from their device. If you have some sort of like legal statement or some sort of message you want your customers to read over and agree to before your driver does the job, you can put that in one of these two boxes. So some sort of disclaimer, for example. Anything you put here, the driver can click the tow ticket button on their app. Whatever you wrote there, the customer would look at, read, click I agree, and then your customer has the ability to sign with their finger or a stylus on the driver's phone, agreeing to whatever your disclaimer or whatever your legal statement is. So that's what these can be used for down here. Then again, if your driver needs to send that or you need to send it from the system, you'll have the ability to forward or email, print out, whatever you need to do with that message. Payment settings to the right. After a payment's taken, we can choose whether the invoice comes up every single time and the sales receipt. Some customers like to just have the invoice or just have the receipt show up each time. These are typically turned on by default, but if you don't need to see them, either or, you can unselect them. Password required on payment, exactly as it sounds. Anytime anybody takes a payment in the system, they have to put their password in. So it's a level of security. Auto post on payment. This is an accounting function. Basically, if the person has the right security level, they're taking a payment in full, and everything on the call that was required is filled out, the call will bypass our posting or our verification piece and just bypass right into your accounts receivables. We'll talk about this a little bit more in our accounting trainings in about 2 weeks. So if you're not sure what that means, you may want to keep that unchecked until you kind of see it and exactly how it works. But it is an option to kind of help speed up the accounting side. And then allow release on partial payment. Anybody that's doing any sort of impounding of vehicles, if you would release that car on a partial payment, maybe they're going to pay half and then they're going to come back and pay the other half later on for some reason, you can allow your vehicles to be released from impound like that. If you want to make sure that a payment in full is taken before it allows you to release it, you'd want to keep this unchecked every single time. All right. So that's our accounting tab. The impound section here, one option, basically verify VIN on vehicle release. Whenever we're releasing a vehicle from impound, it makes us put the last 6 of the VIN in. So if we want that as a security feature, making sure that the wrong car isn't released by accident, that's what this is for. We can just have a little checkbox here. And then merchant or merchant services. This is basically for credit card integration or credit card processing. So if you sign up with either Sage or ExpressPay, they would give you special gateway keys and everything. Basically what this does, it allows you to take a payment either directly through Dispatch Anywhere, or it allows your driver to take a payment directly through the app. So if you're interested in that type of information, or at least maybe possibly signing up, or if you've already signed up with them, give us a call and we can walk you through actually setting it up with your account so you can start taking payments through it. All right, so that's the division settings. Doesn't look like any questions so far, so we'll kind of keep rolling on here. So we'll go leave. We don't want to save anything. Users are going to be anybody that's going to be accessing the account, non-driver. So it could be somebody that's dispatching, it could be somebody that's doing reporting, it could be somebody that's doing accounting, for example. So again, in our test database, we have a bunch of different people in here. So we'll kind of look at some of these here. If I was creating a new one, it does make me create a username. This is what I was talking about before. Instead of at least old DA customers, your username may be your PIN number. So you may want to change it here. Passwords, you just put a password in whatever you want to use. First name and last name is required. If a person's going to be only using one division, you can select it here. If the person's going to be managing calls from all different divisions, you'd want to make them an all division user. Department, there's one report in our system, it's sales by department. So if you have different departments, and I'll show you how to set these up later, you may want to see sales from these users based on the different departments that they work in. So we can select that. If that's not something you're really interested in, whether you select none or the default admin, it's not going to make a difference. Company administrator, you will not see this. This is only something that we'll see on our side. What this is for, and you can see if somebody's a company admin by the little wrench next to their name here. What that means is anything that has to do with a password, whether it's users, creating a driver username and password, and some of these other features in here, you have to be a company admin for. So if you log into the settings page and you don't see users, right away you'll know that you're not a company admin. Typically your company admin is the first person that was created in the system for you. If you need additional company admins, let us know. We just send out a quick form. It's all digital. You sign it, send it back to us, and we can go ahead and make whoever you need to company admins. But a lot of the functions now, a little bit higher security level on a lot of this stuff, you have to be a company admin. Comments down here, these are basically internal comments for you if you want to put something about the user. We don't really use it for anything, but there is a box for it. And then user roles, these are security settings that each person's going to be able to basically do or have in our system, and you can modify them down here on the left here in security. You may have somebody that's just call taking and basically just entering calls. You may have a dispatcher and a call taker that they're putting in calls and dispatching them out. Supervisor gets into, at least by default, some of the beginning levels of accounting. Manager takes it a step further with entering payments. And then administrator allows you to reverse payments, see pictures, and we'll explain that a little bit more when we get into the security settings down here. But these all stack on top of each other. So if I'm a dispatcher and I'm entering calls, I need to be a dispatcher and a call taker. So depending on the level of security, you may need to be multiple roles. So again, if you need help with that or trying to figure out, I want this person to be able to do this, but I don't want them to be able to do this, let us know. We can walk you through the security settings as well. Right. So that's basically your users. Now, if you are a company admin, you will be able to see who's logged in. So if they're logged in on a computer, you'd see a little computer icon. I don't know if there we go. We got somebody logged in on their phone. If somebody's logged in on the mobile app, there'll be a little phone icon here. But what you could do if you needed to, if this person's logged in and you need to disconnect them, you can boot them out of the system by highlighting their name and hitting disconnect up here. Previously, this was something that we had to do on our side for you. We still can if you need us to, but if you're a company admin, you can now boot people out of the system if you need to. Okay. So it basically sums up users. Drivers, we'll create a new one here. Pretty straightforward here. Display name is going to be the name that appears on your dispatch screen. It's also the name that appears on your reports for this driver. So some people like to use just first name and last name, nicknames. It doesn't matter as long as you have something there. Number or employee number could go here. If you don't have actual employee numbers, a lot of companies don't. You can just use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. as it goes. It will not allow you to duplicate employee numbers, but it does make you put something here. So you just got to use whatever the next number is. Division, basically, again, you can lock drivers down to a specific division, or if this driver only takes calls for, let's say, the M2 division, for example, we can lock them down to that division. Otherwise, if they're multiple divisions, they'd be an all-division driver. State license, again, that's for Texas. Each driver has their own TDLR number. First name, middle, last name, address of the employee, emergency contacts, possibly. Notes or remarks about the employee if we need to put something down here, and then telephone numbers, home, mobile, other email, etc. A lot of this stuff is going to be for you if you want to put this in here. Think about it like a virtual filing cabinet to save the information. The only piece that we require is a display name, a number, first name and last name. So that's the minimums you have to put in there. Everything else, there is a space for it in the software. Some companies have it saved somewhere else so they don't bother putting it in here, but there is a spot to save all that information. Administrative, just more information about the employee, birthdays, when they were hired, years of experience, pay rates, etc. Again, this is all going to be for you. There is a spot for license expiration. There is one report in our system that you would have to run. You have to keep up with it manually. But if you run it for a date range, let's say, January through March, for example, of next year, it's going to show you all the drivers that are going to be expiring within that time frame. So if you put it here, again, you have to keep up with it manually. This will kind of give you some of those search results, at least if you're running that report. There is a checkbox at the bottom that's kind of important, this inactive button. We never want to delete a driver out of our system, at least if they've run one or more calls. If you delete them, it deletes them off of every single call that they've ever run. Now, if you did it by accident, you can always call us. We still save it as raw data on our side, so if we need to reverse it, we can for you. But normally, you just mark them as inactive. It clears them off of your dispatch screen so you don't see them anymore, and then it saves all their history. So that's down there, but again, if you do it by accident, let us know. We can always restore it. Now, what this is telling me is, because I'm creating a driver, I need to save the driver before I can access the app, ticket book, or images settings. So I'm just going to go to an existing one. We can kind of see that more tabs will show up after we save it. So on the commissions tab, this is where we can set their commissions. If we've created a commission list already, we can select which one they're using. We'll cover that here in a little bit too. Rate adjustment, let's just say that this driver is a 20% driver, and for this pay period, for whatever reason, I'm going to give them a 5% increase. I can just put in a 5% rate adjustment here, and it would increase all their percentages by 5%. So it could be something like a bonus type of system, or maybe they are getting a rate increase of 1, 2, or 3%, something like that. Instead of creating a whole brand new commission list, we can just do an adjustment here. Time templates, these are going to be used for, at least referring to commissions. Maybe your drivers are hourly during the day, and only after hours and on weekends, for example, they're commission based. We can set up a commission list and a time template to only calculate commission in our system after hours. Or maybe it's their commission all the time, but if they do a job after hours or on the weekend, they get a little bit more. The system can figure all that stuff out for you. So again, we'll kind of cover that here in a little bit, but that's what the time adjustment or the time template is used for with the driver. The apps tab, this is kind of important. If your drivers are going to be using our smartphone app, the DA driver app, you do have to set them up with a username and a password. So by selecting this box here, we can create whatever username and whatever password you want for the driver. The only really requirement for the username is it can't be used by one of our other customers. So if you try to reuse one that's already been used, you're just going to get, it's going to turn red saying it's already in use. So you just have to come up with something else. But once all the drivers have a username and password, then they can log into the driver app going forward. Notifications, you can set up different alert groups. We can set up email notifications. This was a little bit more popular when we didn't have the smartphone app. We had to set this up to either email it or text it out to the driver. So that's what this is for. Some companies use this to kind of send out blanket messages to their drivers as well if they're part of an alert group. If you don't plan on doing that, or you just want your drivers to use the smartphone app, you only have to set up the apps tab. Ticket books or invoice books, this is supposed to be able to keep track of your driver's invoice books. Again, we don't really use it anywhere in the software, but there is a space to save all that information. So we can put the starting and ending invoices, or at least the numbers that we gave them, the date that we issued it to them, and then completed, or once they went through all the tickets, we can mark that here. This way you can kind of keep track of, are the drivers going through their invoices at a normal rate? Are they using them too fast for some reason? Are they losing a lot of them? This will kind of be able to keep track of it. It's almost like an Excel spreadsheet, if you want to think about it that way. But again, it's internal. It's for you. We don't use it anywhere in the software. And then images. This allows you to upload as many images as you want to the driver's profile. I've seen things like driver's licenses. I've seen hiring paperwork. Maybe if a driver got written up for some type of reason, you can upload the documentation here. Again, kind of think about it like a virtual filing cabinet to save all that, but it is unlimited space if you want to use it. Otherwise, again, it's internal for you. We just don't use it anywhere in the software specifically. You could also click this upload button if you want to upload documents that way. So that's pretty much your driver area here. I get this question a lot. If I mark my driver inactive, they don't show up in the list anymore, which is correct. That's because of this little filter right here. So there is a filter, and it's always set to active drivers. I can either change it to all or just inactive drivers. Maybe you have a seasonal employee, you marked them inactive for that period, and then they came back. You can find them in your inactive list here. Let's say it's Aaron. I can go back to the admin tab, and then I can unselect this inactive button, and then it just makes them an active driver again. So you don't have to constantly keep recreating the same driver over and over and over again. Or maybe a driver left and then they came back. Whatever the reason is, you can always bring them back from the inactive status. They're just in this little filter here, though. All right, so we'll move on to vehicles. So vehicles or trucks, we need to enter all these into the system. So we, again, have a couple in here from our test database. When you add a new truck in here, the number or code of some kind, whatever you guys use like to identify that truck, go ahead and put that here. It's going to be easier to identify that truck moving around on the map, whatever code or whatever you guys use. The different truck types, whatever truck type it is, you can select it here. Again, a division, if your truck is specifically for a division, you can select it. Otherwise, it can be an all-division truck. State license, again, for Texas customers. Year, make, model, color of the vehicle. VIN number. Plate, the state, plate number, when it expires. There is, again, one report for when your plates expire. Again, you have to keep up with it manually and run the report, but you could run it for a date range. It would tell you, okay, January to March. These are all the trucks, plates that are going to be expiring, so you kind of keep up with it so you renew them. Bed manufacturers, models, serial numbers, notes, and remarks. Kind of a place for you to put all that information. As far as information we use in the program, number down to vehicle color is the required stuff. Everything else is for you if you want to save it and have it kind of in the software, but again, it's not required. But vehicle number down to vehicle color is the required stuff. GPS, we do have integration with, I believe at this point, 17 or 18 different GPS providers. So if you're currently using GPS or you have GPS in your trucks, if we're not integrated, we have no problem integrating with whoever. So let us know. We can possibly integrate with your GPS that you already have. But once that's all kind of set up on the back end, we would go through, and this is where you match up your trucks. So you may have called it, truck 001 in our software, but in your GPS software, it's just 01. That's where we need to match this stuff up here. Administrative, just more information about the truck, so starting and ending miles, the day that you purchased it for whatever amount, if you sold it for whatever amount, again, to kind of just keep track of everything together. And then images, you have different images you can upload for the vehicles. So we have some test images here, but it could be things like, I've seen people's pictures of their trucks, I've seen maintenance paperwork uploaded before in here, purchasing paperwork, things like that kind of associate it with that truck. But again, it's the idea of that virtual filing cabinet if you want to use it that way. All right, so that's vehicles. I'm going to leave that. Services, these are basically all the different services that we can use within our program. And I'm going to show you how this relates to the price lists here in a second. But most services for most companies are already kind of defined in here. But if we want to add a new one, maybe our program doesn't know that we want to use, maybe we have a Landau service that's not in the list. We can add a brand new service and call it whatever we want up here. There's different categories we can put this into. Type, none is going to be basically a flat rate. Labor is going to be some sort of hourly calculator. Mileage includes en route or return or deadhead miles. And then if it's some sort of new storage that you're adding, you'll mark it as a storage type. I'm going to show you how these calculators work here in a second when we start doing our price lists. But if you need to use some sort of calculator, you need to mark it. Again, if it's going to be a flat rate, you just mark it as none. Commissionable, just if this service is commissionable or we will pay commission on the service, we want to make sure this is checked. If it's not a commissionable service, we want to make sure it's unchecked. Non-revenue service just means some sort of service that you may have in your software that you don't want to generate revenue or sales in your software. It could be things like I've seen, like for example, payout charges. Payout charges typically are non-revenue services. Sometimes people consider like their tolls or some sort of the admin or pass-through fees as non-revenue. They don't want to count it towards their sales, so you can mark it as such here. Allow storage to continue on partial payments. Again, this is only referring to a storage service. It would allow your storage to continue. So if maybe you have a car in impound, it's a $200 bill, I pay you $100 right now. This would allow you to do that, but it doesn't mean storage stops. Storage will still continue after taking that payment. If this is unchecked, storage would stop on that whatever day I took it. Maybe I'd made the payment today on Tuesday, but I'm not picking it up till Friday. Storage wouldn't accrue for the next 3 days. It would just be for the, up until Tuesday. So depending on how your storage is set up, you may or may not need this checked. And then TowMagic Motor Club billing service type. This only has to do with customers that are doing motor club work and are billing whatever the service is to the motor club. It should match up, because you can call it whatever you want. It should match up to some sort of service that the motor club would see it as, or at least as far as billing is concerned. If you're not sure what to select here, give us a call. We can walk you through it and help you set it up. So it varies from motor club to motor club. Most of the normal ones are already in the software, are already in your list, so you shouldn't have to change it. But if you have to add any new ones, let us know and we can help you select whichever one you need to here. All right. So those are the services. This is one place to add it, or I'm going to show you in a second when we do price lists how to add it at that time. Sometimes you need to come in here, maybe you misspelled something, or maybe something wasn't commissionable that might have needed to be commissionable. You can select it. So there's a couple different reasons you would come in here. So we'll go to accounts or customers. So these are all the different customer or accounts that you would have. So you may need to either add to this or create this list of different customers. So you can see we have a bunch of them in here. We typically use this Bob's Cadillac account here, so I'm going to use that one for our example today. So if I'm adding in a new account, whatever the name of the account is the name. The number or account number can go here. It's not required, but if you want that number to appear on your invoice and or statement, you want that here. You have different types of accounts as a category for the account. There's, again, one report in our system. It's sales by account type. So if I wanted to see, all of my police counts, what the total sale was, I can do it that way. All my dealerships, all my motor clubs, for example, as long as they're marked correctly with the vehicle, or excuse me, the account type, we can get that number running that report. Division, again, if we were one division or multi-division, you may have accounts for each division or each location, so you can separate them out with this. If you're going to use it across both or all divisions, it would be an all-division account. Default ETA, this is a ETA that it will use instead. So we talked about up here in the divisions, a general ETA. If the account has one here, it's going to use this instead of the general one. So maybe I have a police account and their ETAs are always 20 minutes. I can mark this here, but then all my other accounts are, let's say, 30 minutes or 45 minutes because I set that in my division. It's basically an account-specific ETA override by putting it here. Primary and secondary contacts, if I have something for this account, so maybe a motor club type of an account, maybe I have a contact, account rep, something like that here. Location or physical address would go here. So this could be, maybe it's a dealership or a shop and you want to put their physical address here. As long as you have the address here when we take a call, I can say that this call is going to Bob's Cadillac and it will pull over this address in here. This is also used for the driver app. If you're doing any sort of private property impound and you have your different lots in here, when your driver starts and creates a call, it's going to find this address and say, okay, your driver is at this Schneider Street address. It belongs to Bob's Cadillac's account. So it's a way to quickly set up or find your lots that your drivers may patrol. So we do, if you have a physical address, you do want to put it here. A spot for a website if you want to put it here. And then remarks, if you want to put any sort of remarks on this account, you have a section down here too. So it's a general tab. Account data, just more information about this account. So bank account numbers possibly. How you bill this account. Is it a monthly account? Is it weekly? Is it immediate, daily, etc.? How do you, or what do you send out? Do you print out everything? Do you fax it? Do you email it? Is it more of a direct deposit type of an account? Do you send them invoices and statements? Do they only get invoices? Do they only get statements? There's different invoice styles, so we can select which one works the best. Again, if it's a police account or an account that, especially for Texas, that needs to have the TDLR information on it, you need to mark it down here. Anytime you see anything with main address, the difference with that is typically your invoices or statements will use the division address. If you want it to use the company address, that's what main address means. So it will use whatever address you have in the company. So your division may be a physical address, but maybe all your mailing needs to go to a P.O. box, for example. You can make your company address a P.O. box and then use the main address invoice or statement style, and it will use or show that address on your invoices or statements as well. Same thing with the statement styles. There's a couple different ones. You can kind of choose from whichever one you like the best. Tow Magic Contractor ID. If you are a account or tow company that does motor club work, if you've already set up your Tow Magic, you would have your options to match up the correct Tow Magic account with the account that you have in Dispatch Anywhere. What this does, this is for our customers that are using our motor club billing feature. It needs to be matched up for that feature to work. Typically, we do that for you or with you, but if you've already set up your Tow Magic or you need to match up a new account possibly with this, you can come in here and match it up with whichever account it relates to. Invoice message. This message here, so we talked about the division one, which is a generic one that appears on every single invoice. If you put a message here on the account specifically, this will only be for this account. So you may have something special for this account, please submit all payments to so-and-so, or, thank you for your business. Something generic that would appear on every single one, but there is a spot for that over here. Billing terms, basically maybe they're a net 15 or a net 30 account. You can mark it here. If you put 0 or you leave it blank, it's going to say due immediately. Credit limit. If this account has a credit limit, on the call there is a spot that shows if they are over their credit limit. It doesn't stop you from taking a call for that company, but maybe this account has a $1,000 limit. If their balance is or it exceeds $1,000, it's going to warn you when you take your next call, hey, this account is over the credit limit that you set up. If you leave it at 0, it's just going to be unlimited. Different ratings for your accounts. Last time you billed them, when you created the account, just to keep track of it. This checkbox will hide balances from accounts receivables if we need to. So this is a write-off account. I've seen people do it with different write-off impound accounts. Maybe we don't want to see that number as part of our sales number or on our sales reports. We can mark it as a hide from AR type of an account. And disabling it. This is very similar to what we talked about with the drivers. You never want to delete your accounts out of the system. Just disable them. It will retain all that history. If you delete the account, it's going to delete every single call that you ran. But again, if you do it by accident, just call us. We can always restore it. More notes if we need to down here. And then down the right-hand side, billing information. This is going to be, so you have the general tab, which is the physical address. And then you have a potential different billing address. It may be the same. It may be a P.O. box, for example. Whatever address that we want to appear on our invoices or statements, you need to put it in the billing information as well. Fax and email. Our software allows you to fax or email directly from our software. So if the account does have a fax number or email address already saved here, you would just type in that this invoice is going to Bob's Cadillac, and the email address or fax number would just pull over from the account automatically for us. So you don't have to type it in every single time. You just got to make sure it's down here though. So that's the account data tab. The user-defined fields. These are just additional fields you can put information in if you want to. Web access, basically what this is for, this website, and then whatever user account ID and password that you create would be for, in this case, Bob's Cadillac. They could log on to this website, user ID and whatever password you gave them, and create a call from a website versus having to call you on the phone every single time. So if you ever have any accounts that they say, hey, do you have a website that I can send you a job instead of calling you all the time? That's what this is for. If you need to set this up, though, give us a call. We can help you and walk you through that. There's some extra settings we have to do on our side for this to work properly. Pricing. So on our accounts, each account's going to use a different price list. Again, we're going to make a price list here in a little bit. So if we've already made a price list, we just need to say this account needs to use this type of pricing or this type of pricing structure. Pricing adjustments allows us to increase or decrease pricing based on, maybe this account for this month, we're going to run a sale and they're going to get, let's say, 10% off everything that they do with us. Or maybe, they've been sending us so much business, we're going to do something special. That's what this is going to do. So instead of making a whole brand new price list, this would just do a blanket 10% automatically for you, something like that. We can set up default services. So in this case, we have a tow and a mileage on this account. This is going to be used for on the call. There's a button that says add default services. So whatever default services are on here, it just adds those to the call without having me, entering a tow and mileage every single time. Show adjustments. If we have any sort of adjustments, we can see it on the call entry, the invoice, and the statement. These are typically checked by default. And then we have our price list. In this case, this is using the dealer type of price list. So some of these prices fed in automatically. Maybe this account has an override, which is what these little icons indicate. An override is just a variation from whatever the price list says. So maybe the flatbed price for everybody else is 70, but for Bob's Cadillac, because they do so much business, they're actually 65. So I can do an override on the rate here. And it's going to indicate it with a little button here that this price is different than what my dealership price list originally said. So we're like, oh wait, no, that's wrong. You can just undo it by hitting that button, and it will go back to whatever the price list said, in this case $70. We're going to look at all these little indicators here in the price list here in a second, so we'll kind of go over what these all mean. This just means there's some sort of additional adjustment, whether it's a time zone or payment adjustment. All right. Job edit. So at the beginning of this call or the beginning of this training, we talked about in the company tab the master job edit screen. This job edit screen is specific to, in this case, Bob's Cadillac. So we can make changes here that only reflect when we take a Bob's Cadillac call. So we made the owner's name, phone number, and address as required entry or required dispatcher fields. The VIN and the odometer are driver fields. And then we made our PO a posting field. So we hid the priority here. You can kind of see it's grayed out. So you can make account-specific changes if you want to, and or you can make blanket changes up in the company. So you got either option when you do that. And then images. This allows you to upload images for an account. It could be things like just random pictures here. It could be things like contracts I've seen, especially if you're doing any sort of private property impound, stuff like that can all go in the images tab. But it's unlimited space, the same thing as the drivers and the vehicles. Right. So those are the account settings here. Right. So I'm going to leave. Impound lots, very similar. Again, just adding your impound information, the name, maybe a lot number, state license again for Texas. Contact person for this lot if you have multiples, phone number and fax for them, and then your physical address. You definitely want to have your physical address on here. So if I was taking a call and I said it was going to the green light yard, this address would automatically appear on the call for me, so I don't have to sit there and type it out every single time. So pretty straightforward, just adding your impound lots. Dictionaries, there's a bunch of different dictionaries in here. Basically, anytime you're in here, anything that has a drop down, and if the option you want isn't in that drop down, you can basically update it or add it to the list in here. So a lot of times when people are adding the different trucks or vehicles, sometimes your different truck models aren't in that drop down. So you can come in here, if I go to the bottom here, add whatever I want to and hit add and save it. When I go back to the vehicles, it's going to be in the list then. So there's different things in here that you may need to update. If you are a company that charges tax, we do need to mark our tax rates and whatever we want in here. The default we'll say is state and city tax, so you need to mark it accordingly if you do charge tax. Priorities you can change. There's a couple default ones in here. You can also associate an icon with the priority, and we'll talk about this a little bit more on our dispatch, and at least how it relates to the dispatching side next week. And driver checklist, this is a newer type of feature. So at the beginning of the call, we did talk about the drivers being able to do a vehicle inspection. This is where you come up with whatever list of things you want them to check over. this is what trucks it applies to. So this like safety equipment, doesn't matter what truck I scan into, I need to check that. The fluid levels, though, the only time it will come up is when I scan into a flatbed. And then the 4x4 flatbed, etc. Whatever truck types that you have, you can basically apply either a list specifically for that truck, or if it's all, again, it will apply to all of them. Trash can if you need to delete them. And then this allows you to just reorder how these appear in the list. So a lot of times, once you get a full list in here, you may want to order it so as the driver walks around the vehicle, it's in order of, instead of checking like the headlight and the tail light and then going to check maybe, special equipment, you kind of walk around the truck. So you can order it however you see fit, but that's what that's there for. Other than that, all the other ones kind of apply to different sections you may be in, depending on if it's users, drivers, vehicles, accounts, etc. They all apply to something here. Just a dictionary. DA for drivers, these are your driver settings with the mobile app. So enable QR scan assignment. This is for the actual QR codes that you can print out so the drivers can scan into their vehicle. Sometimes you may want them just to be able to scan into the vehicle and not do a checklist. Maybe you don't do that. But if you want them to do both, scan and do a checklist, they'll both be selected here. Each of our divisions are going to be separated out here. I'll just go over the green light settings. So allow drivers to take payments. You may or may not want your drivers to do that, so that can be selected or not. Allow drivers to edit services. This allows your drivers to add services in the field. Allow drivers to view service pricing. So if they're adding services, maybe you don't want them to be able to see pricing, but you want them to be able to add services. You can hide that by unchecking this. Allow drivers to edit service pricing. Again, maybe I want my drivers to be able to add a service in the field, but I don't want them to see prices, or I don't want them to be able to edit pricing. That's what these buttons can do for you. Prompt driver for keys upon arrival to destination. If this is selected when your driver timestamps arrival basically at the destination, it will automatically come up on their screen and say who's getting the keys or who are you handing the keys to. They'll type their name in, and then that person can sign right off on their phone, again, with their finger or a stylus. So if you want that as an option every single time, you can turn that on. Allow drivers to create jobs. This allows them, and this is more for the private property side of it, where if your drivers are patrolling lots and you want them to be able to create that call in the field, you would want to turn this on. And again, you can modify whether they're doing anything with services when they're creating the call, but it allows them to create a call, right in the field. And then driver edit history and driver view history. Edit history is just if there's any required information, let's say the VIN number. They have, in this case, 1 day to go back and edit it if they've already finished out the call. The default for this is 3 days, but you can change it to whatever you want. The view history is how far back they can go and see previous jobs. This is a rolling 365 days, so maybe you want them to only be able to go back and see the last, let's say 60 days worth of calls. You can change it here as well. So that's what this setting will do. All right. So that's your driver settings. Security. This has to do with users again and kind of what access they have within the system. So we got our admin, supervisor, manager, call taker, dispatcher, and our little test one that we have down here. You can add new ones if you wanted to, new security levels. But basically any little piece or part of the program, this allows you to modify it. So maybe as let's say a dispatcher, for some reason I don't want them to be able to release a vehicle. Maybe I have this on a separate security level. I can move this either somewhere else, or I can create a whole brand new one, maybe specifically for people that are managing my impound. So this can be customized how you see fit. Maybe you want, you have a certain person that's a dispatcher and a call taker, and maybe they do some of your accounting for you, but you don't really want them to be able to run all your sales reports or see all that information. You can modify it how you see fit. Usually when you're modifying a lot of this stuff, let us know. We can usually walk you through a lot of this. Some of this gets confusing, but if you need to move stuff around yourself, this is where you'd move it around. So security levels, and again, it associates with your users in the software. Price list. Now this kind of gets in with your accounts again, so we're kind of circle back here. We have a bunch of different price lists already associated here, so we're just going to look at let's look at the dealership one. All right. So we've already added services to a price list. When you create a brand new one, nothing's going to be on here. You'll have to add services down here at the bottom, one by one, onto your price list. So let's add a new service. So let's just say on this price list, And the stuff that's already there is already grayed out. Let's say we need a crane service on our price list. I can set the rate here. Maybe, I don't know, let's say it's $250. If I set the rate, that rate will automatically appear when I take the call. If that rate is variable or it changes all the time, you can set it for 0. That's perfectly fine. That would just mean that every time you take the call, you'll have to set the price on there. Discount is just for any discounts that you may be doing. So maybe it's, I don't know, maybe I want to show the rate of $250, but I want to show that there is a 10% discount on the invoice. I can do it there. Otherwise, you can leave it 0. Taxable, if it is taxable, and then you would select whatever tax rate that you've already set up. So maybe it's a, I don't know, a state tax that we're charging. Discountable just means you can discount it. It doesn't mean it is getting discounted. If you do have something here, you have to select this, but this just allows you to discount the service if you want to. If it's not selected, you won't be able to discount that service. So there is an option for that. And then any sort of pricing adjustments, we have time, zone, or payment adjustments. What these are used for, time adjustments just means maybe you have a service or a price that goes up or down during certain times of the day. You can set a time adjustment to automatically increase it or even decrease it during those set hours. Zone adjustments are typically used for like a port-to-port type of transaction. So maybe, you know, my base rate is $100, but I have zone adjustment set up where if I'm taking it from somewhere within Cleveland here to somewhere else in Cleveland, my base rate, there is no adjustment. It's just $100. Maybe if I do from Cleveland to Columbus, though, maybe my price increase is $50. You can set up a zone to automatically increase that price without your dispatcher having to adjust it every single time. And then payment adjustments, and again, we got a couple different ones. We'll look at these in a second. Payment adjustments allow you to increase or decrease the price based on how the customer is paying. So maybe we have credit cards. It automatically increases our prices, let's say 3%, for example. You can set up price adjustments to do that within the software. Right. Comments, if we want to put a certain comment here, we can. You won't see it anywhere. It's just more internal for you. Now, if we're trying to add a service and we look at this list, we're like, well, the service I really want isn't on this list. You can add it right here. You could have added it over in the service list to the left ahead of time, but if you're doing it while you're creating your price list, which is typically when you're going to find it, you can just click Add New Service, and the same type of options we had when we had the services over here, same thing here. So you can select everything on the fly and then just add it as a service to your price list. The big thing with, or when you're doing your price list to remember, if your account is, in this case, looking at our dealer price list and the service is not on here, you can't use it on a call. So you want to try to really get all the services that you're going to need and put them on the price list ahead of time. But if you're missing it, you're going to have to go back and add it before you can add it to that call. So you really want to try to dial in your price list for the services that you really do offer. Even if it's that one service you may offer maybe once a year, make sure it's on the list, otherwise you can't use it. The only other thing that we have to kind of go over with price lists are the 3 calculators that we talked about before. So we're going to use this in route one here. So you got a mileage, you got a labor with the L, and then you got a storage, which is with the S in brackets here. So we'll look at this one here. So when adding any sort of mileage calculator, whether it's in route, return, or loaded miles, you're going to put whatever your rate is here. In this case, it's $2 a mile, or for in route anyways. You also have to set up your little calculator here. The route leg, whatever it's supposed to be, in route, loaded, or return. In this case, this is in route. We can change rounding to whole, half, or tenths of a mile. If you kind of hover over the little question mark, it kind of gives you an idea of how it's going to round. We'll always round up when we're doing this. So 14.21, we'll round up to 15 if we're doing, you know, a whole mile, or 14.3 if we're doing a tenth, etc. Initial fee, basically a fee that's applied before all rules are calculated. Most of the time your initial fee is going to be taken care of by your, let's say, your tow or your jump start of some kind. Usually you won't have it with your mileage, but maybe you have a minimum of $10 on miles and then we charge everything after that. You could have something like that here. And then when you load this the first time, it's just going to have the unit price. So if you're charging no free miles, you're just going to put, in this case, $2 a mile and hit set. If we have any sort of free miles, we do have to click the plus though and set up however many free miles. So let's just say it's the first 10. So we could say the first 10 miles at 0 or free. Everything after that's $2 a mile. We can increase that further. Maybe the first 10 are free, the next, I don't know, 90 are $2 a mile, then everything after that, so a total of 100 miles, I'm going to start charging $4 a mile. The system will automatically do that for you when calculating the price when taking a call. So there is an option to keep increasing price if you want to. Most people typically just have their first, let's say, 10 miles, and then everything after that, whatever their rate is. We'll say it's 2. So we hit set, then set again. Again, you can do discounts, taxable adjustments, etc. on that service as well. That would set our mileage. Loaded and return miles are going to be exactly the same way. The only thing that's different on those, your route leg would change to whatever it happens to be. In this case, if it's return, it would be return. Labor calculators, these are pretty easy too, so we'll click this one here. You put your hourly rate here, and then you also set up your calculator. So it depends how you want to round it. Again, maybe I want to round to a whole hour, half, or tenths of an hour. I can have an initial fee. In this case, this one has an initial fee of $125. The first quarter hour, or so the first 15 minutes, are free in this case. Actually, that shouldn't be there. And then everything after that, actually, it doesn't need to be there either. It would be something like this. Let's say it's 125. Actually, let's say it's 250. So this would charge 125 initially off the bat. The first 15 minutes, it's not going to charge anything. And then everything after that, at a half-hour increment, would be charged at 250 per hour. At least rounding anyways to a half of an hour, so 125 per half. So depending on how your hourly increments are set up, you can set it up ahead of time, so it does it automatically when you take a call. Sometimes with this, a lot of customers like to just manually enter their time when they take a call. So you can either let the system do it automatically, or you can enter it manually, whichever way works. Again, you might have other adjustments or tax that we need to apply here. And then storage will work very similar. You may have an offset or a grace period. So the difference between the two, an offset time will push your clock out a certain amount of time. So maybe I have, let's say a 6-hour offset. If that car came in at 12 o'clock and I had a 6-hour offset, my clock or the time for that call won't start until 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. If I have a grace period is going to wait a certain amount of time. And then if the customer doesn't pick it up, it's going to revert the clock back to whatever it came in. So let's use that example of noon again. The car came in at noon. I have 180 minutes. Grace, if the customer picks it up within that time frame, it's free. If they don't, my clock starts back at noon. It doesn't push the clock out like an offset would. So depending on contracts, typically police ones, you may or may not have something like that. Initial fee, again, some sort of fee that's charged ahead of time. How you bill your days is a calendar or a 24-hour period. So is it either after midnight, or do you have to wait a full 24 hours before you bill? And then you can set up different day ranges here. Actually, the way that this is set up is incorrect. I might just charge $45 per day. I could do something where I want to charge for the first 60 days at 45, and then everything after that maybe 0. Maybe after 60 days, based on your state, you can't collect any more storage based on the lien process. So you don't want this thing to keep accruing storage. You just want to cut it off after a certain amount of days. You can kind of do something like that. Or I've seen before, maybe for the first 5 days, it's $10 a day, and then everything for the next 25, it's 15. Then everything after that's $30 a day. So you can increase your price based on however many days it's been in your impound. So you have a couple different options. Very flexible how you set up your storage calculators. Same thing with labor, same thing with mileage. Again, if you need help with it, let us know. Shoot us a message. We can always help you out with that stuff too. All right, so we can save it. Now, if you're kind of doing this, maybe you got a couple different motor clubs and you've created your first price list and the rest of them are very similar. You have a duplicate button up here. Instead of making a whole brand new price list and redoing it, adding all the services one by one again, you can duplicate it and then just go in and edit the prices on the services that are different. So it saves you a little bit of time if you're making multiple price lists at the same time. Again, deleting it. If you delete it by accident, call us. We can always restore it. The way that these kind of relate, and we'll look at it one more time really quick, we'll go back to accounts. Once you've made a price list, I'm just going to pick BG Auto. under the pricing tab on that account, you need to make sure that that account is using the correct price list. Otherwise, when you take a call, it might be pulling in the wrong information. So doing pricing is two parts: making the price list and then making sure the account is actually using the correct price list. So just make sure that that's set up when you're doing price lists. Commission lists, again, we have a couple different ones. Let's look at Matt's commission. We can add a new one. Actually, we'll just add a new one. Anything that was marked as commissionable in our services will automatically appear on our list here. All right. Typically, you don't have to modify this, but if I need to add something special, I can add a commission item. And again, everything that's already added is in gray, so everything's already been added that I need. And call it whatever we want. Let's call this test commission. Maybe my default rate for this is, I don't know, 30%. I can type in 30% here, apply it to all, and it applies 30% down the line here. Maybe that's correct for most of it, but I don't know, for some reason, my battery jumps are only going to be, actually, let's make sure that, let's do 25%. I can itemize or change commission on each line item if I want to. Otherwise, I can just use a default. The other options you have in here, maybe you have it's 30% most of the time, but for this service or on this commission list, during a certain time, it might be 50% for some reason. You can make adjustments, same thing with zone or payment adjustments to adjust commission on this service up or down. Again, kind of how your company operates. A lot of times, if you're kind of getting complicated like that with commissions, call us and set up a training or just call our support line so we can help you out. Sometimes it gets, depending on what you're trying to change, you want to make sure it's actually paying correctly for your commission, so you may need to update or modify that. And we'll finally get into adjustments down here. So you get a couple different adjustments. So we're going to make up a new time adjustment. Actually, let's use BG time. So the way we have this set up, you want to make sure you cover the hours of the day that are going to be different. So you have an option to, do I want to do it Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every day? Maybe I need a different one for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You just want to make sure whatever or whenever that time is adjusting, it's selected here. So the way that this one is set up, from midnight till 8 a.m., whatever BG time applies to, whether it's commission or our pricing, it increases our prices 10%. Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m., it's going to adjust 20%. And they skipped a line here for some reason, but from 6 p.m. until 11:59 p.m., so the end of the day, it would increase prices 15%. All right, so that's just your Monday through Friday schedule. Saturday and Sunday, basically all day, so from midnight till 11:59, it would increase prices 50% all the time. So you can set up, again, you can use this for pricing. This could be an increase on commissions during this time for a driver. It could be something specifically to the account. So it just depends how you want to use this, but that's how time adjustments can be used. Again, depending on, usually it's, most of the time I see it's for commissions. Sometimes for AAA, AAA has different times where they pay a little bit more. Usually when people set those up, they typically call us and we can walk you through it. But the main thing to remember here is you're covering every hour of the day, whether it's an increase. If during this time should be no increase, I would just put that at 0 and then just keep it at that. Again, if you're making multiples, you can duplicate it, save it or delete it. Again, if you delete it by accident, call us, we can restore it. Zones, I'll use the base zone one. This is the kind of thing I was talking about. You can call your zones whatever you want. You would need to add them in the dictionary, but we have like northwest. If I was going from the northwest zone to the southeast zone, it would increase price $25. If I was going from northwest to southeast, 0, southwest to Solon, 0, southeast to southwest, etc. So you had to set up all these different zones forwards and backwards to increase or decrease your price. Let's see if I have one that's maybe set up a little bit more. Yeah, here's one. So if I was going from like the city of Aurora to Bainbridge, it's a $10 increase. Aurora to Dover, it's a $10 increase. Dover back to Canton, it costs an extra $50, and then from Canton to Dover, the opposite way, it's still $50. So you just got to make sure you're covering from pickup to drop off or from drop off to pickup when you're doing the zones, assuming prices is increasing. But again, if you're creating multiple zones, same options, you can save it, duplicate it, or delete it. And then payment methods, let's do credit, yeah, this one works. So we use the BG test one. So whatever price list or account that this is applying to, for that service, if their customer and the payment type is credit card, it would automatically increase 3%. If it's being paid by cash, or just the same price, it's not going to adjust it up or down. The quick way to know if something is using an adjustment when you're looking at the account or the price list is this little indicator here. So this has a cash discount adjustment for the payment type. That's actually the only one. So if you set one, it doesn't matter what you set, you'll get a little indicator here that you have some sort of adjustment on that service. But you'd have to actually click the pencil to see what the adjustment is. So you can set up different adjustments, again, time zone or payment adjustments based on how your business runs with the settings here. So that pretty much sums up all of the settings part of it. Do we have any questions? We kind of went through it. I know we went through a lot of information today. And we have a handful of people watching today. There's a little chat box to the right if you have any questions on anything. We will probably for the next couple of weeks, we'll kind of continue to do the same type of trainings. This one's going to be recorded and posted up on our YouTube channel probably later today. For the next couple of weeks anyways, Tuesdays I'm going to be doing trainings at 10 a.m. and then Thursdays I'm going to be doing trainings at 2 p.m. It's a little bit later for our West Coast customers, but this week basically is going to be settings. So today and Thursday is going to be the same thing. We're going to be covering the same exact thing. Next week I'm going to be covering dispatch and impounding. So again, Tuesday and Thursday, the same exact thing. The following week after that, I'm going to be covering the accounting side. So that includes posting, how to bill motor club jobs, how to enter payments, how to actually do the commissions, and a little bit of the reporting side the week after that. So after those are kind of taken care of, I'll probably start mixing it up 2-3 times a week. We'll kind of do these live seminars for customers for additional training. So if you have some staff that's trying to get into the new program, or you haven't fully migrated over, or maybe you're not 100% sure where some of the stuff is, we'll be still doing these live trainings just to help out. If you'd rather set up a one-on-one training, let me know. We can always set that up as well. It doesn't seem like we have any questions. I am going to put my email address in the chat box here. So if you do have any questions later on, go ahead and shoot me an email. I'll be here basically all day. Actually, for the rest of the week, I'm not taking any more time off here for a while. So if any questions come up, shoot me an email or just call. Our normal, I'll put the number over here in our chat box here too. Oops. Oops. 3. You can always give us a call on our number. I'm extension 104 if you want to talk to me directly. If you hit option 2, it's going to go to our normal support. But again, if we need kind of some more like one-on-one training, we can do that. If you want to kind of tune in for the live seminars, we'll be having these for the next, definitely the next 3 weeks, but I'll probably continue after that and kind of switch up the schedule. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, I always have it up there the next time that we're going to go live. Or if you check out our Facebook page, or at least like our Facebook page, we have updates, whether it's new live seminars that we're doing. Our YouTube channel will start having more and more videos, like tutorial videos. I'll probably be posting up another update video here in the next couple days. So anytime our new system gets updated, I should have a video up within a couple days after that, just kind of explaining what the changes were. We will eventually have just some sort of prompt or pop-up page letting you know what happens. But until we get that, the videos are kind of the best way to kind of keep track of what's going on with the software, at least the new features that are on there. But again, you can always give us a call, or if you want to set up more training, let me know. But it doesn't seem we have too many questions here, so I'm going to go ahead and end the seminar today. If anything comes up, give me a call or shoot me an email. Or if you want to tune in again next this Thursday or the following weeks, we'll be doing the same thing. But again, next week we'll be dispatching. The following week after that is going to be accounting. But again, Tuesdays at 10, and then Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you guys for tuning in today. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys here soon. Have a good day. Thanks.